Welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered with Perry Clark. This program looks at mental health from unique perspectives and shows you how to manage your life by finding the knots that help you and stay away from the ones that could be a disadvantage. Now, here is your host, Perry Clark.
Hello all, it's Perry Clark back with you today, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. So I want to remind everyone that this podcast is for entertainment and education purposes. This does not count as a mental health session. I strongly recommend you seek a mental health professional in your area to work on your unique issues. So for today, and you're probably going to be noticing in several of the recordings that come out around this time, I had the chance to go to San Diego Comic-Con, which is kind of a mecca for many of us that are the geeks. And it was kind of also one of those items on my bucket list. And I got the fortune of presenting also while I was there. And one of our guests today is one of the panelists I was with on our panels at Comic-Con. And we were talking about neurodiversity and LGBT and supporting individuals with that. And today's guest is one of two, because one of the other panelists also has produced some material that you can easily find out there on the servers and the services. And we're going to be talking today with Chance Calloway. Chance is a singer, songwriter, producer of all trades, and an award-winning director. He is the author of several novels, including the superhero epic Peculiar Incorporated and the Neverland novella Lost. He created and served as a showrunner for Pretty Dudes, a digital series about Zario, a single gay man whose straight friends won't stay out of his romantic life. Chance is a firm believer not only in quality inclusion and the importance of representation in media, but also in creating quality in entertainment across all platforms. As a filmmaker, Chance focuses on telling wide-reaching visual stories that can change the way people see themselves and the world around them. In 2018, Chance launched the streaming platform Stupid Ambitious, a hub for innovation, inclusion, indie works by talented filmmakers with voices overdue for amplification. Chance, welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Not a problem. So, as always, how did you get here?
How did I get here? Sometimes I wonder. It's funny. I think I really got into storytelling on the filmmaker side when I was in middle school, and I heard that they were making a Batman 5 movie, and that they had some ideas for it. And my little 12-year-old self bought a bunch of screenwriting books and actually wrote a full-length screenplay for my version of a Batman 5 sequel. And it was actually pretty cool. I got to talk to people at Warner Brothers. There are reasons that didn't go forward. You can probably guess most of them. But it really kind of sparked my passion because I think it wasn't until I was, talking like in communication with Warner Brothers that people started taking me seriously. Like, oh, Chance, he does when he sets out to do something, he actually does it. I put it on the back burner because, like most people, I decided to become a fully functioning adult in American society the way I thought I was supposed to. Did that for several years and realized that my passion was still in telling stories, especially visual stories. So I moved to LA almost 10 years ago. In November, it will be 10 years. And I started filmmaking, and I think that's how I got here.
Very much so. And so we were on the panel at Comic-Con talking about neurodiversity and LGBT support. And in watching, because I bought the first season of Pretty Dudes, which is the drama you've got on Amazon Prime. And yes, I ended up watching that way later than I had expected to, just to see how the story was going to end and what was going to happen with Zario. And I also have my personal pick of who he should have ended up with. But, as opposed to what happened in the story, which I'm not going to spoiler for that. But I do have some questions about that. But I very much enjoyed watching to see how that story, where we were going to get within that story.
Thank you. Yeah, that I was really passionate about Pretty Dudes, and I I'm actually glad that a lot of the viewers have been as invested as they have been, because when I made it, it was kind of a cathartic experience for me at the time. I was getting over some personal trauma that happened, and I wanted to kind of just make something fun and bright. And, you know, it didn't stay completely bright. You know, there's nuance, there's some darkness to the storyline, but I'm really glad that once we put it out there, that our viewers have been responding very positively to it. We would already have season 2 out if it hadn't been for the pandemic.
Right.
You know how those things go.
So, well, the pandemic has affected so many things. Now, I know as I was reading your bio, we briefly talked a bit about Pretty Dudes, but what is Pretty Dudes in your, it's always say elevator pitch, got longer than 30 seconds here.
Yes, basically, Pretty Dudes is a show about a gay man with a bunch of straight friends who is unlucky in love. And so his friends decide that they can get him a man better than he can. So they have a going bet with each other to see who's going to find him like the perfect new romantic partner. And of course, it goes upside down and sideways and backwards, and it doesn't really go the way that anyone has planned. But yeah, it's my sitcom, my version of all the shows I used to love watching growing up, like, you know, Living Single and Golden Girls. But I just took a nice queer spin on it.
Yeah, as I was watching that, I was like, I'm feeling like I'm watching Golden Girls or a bit of Living Single as another example of it. And that classic, I don't know if we want to call it straight trope of like, oh, I can set them up with their new girlfriend and so forth. And in this case, what does happen when it's a gay man that's dealing with it?
Right. And I thought that was also a unique aspect, because even with a lot of independent shows and films surrounding like gay existence, it's mostly a group of gay friends, which is wonderful. I love shows like that. I loved Noah's Ark. I watched that growing up. But my personal experience growing up in a small town in Georgia, and then serving a couple years in the military, and then I lived a couple years in Alaska. So I essentially was always in environments where if there were other queer people around, they were closeted, and I probably didn't even know. So most of my friends are straight. And so I decided to write something from my experience, which I think kind of gave it a more unique perspective. And I remember when the first episode dropped, I was getting a little pushback from some of the gay viewers, because they were just kind of like, this isn't realistic. How come all of his friends are straight? I said, well, that's all of my friends are straight, so just keep watching. Yeah.
And I think that also gets into an interesting, not just from what you're talking about with the experience, but I think that too gets into the aspect, because one of the tones that I also pick up for Rosario in this is that he's also looking at the wounds that he's had from other gay people. Yes.
I thought that was really important to touch on, because, again, through my experience, there were very few gay people in my life, like in my social life. And usually the encounters were negative, because one of us at the time was closeted. For the first couple of years, it was me. And then, for the later years, it was someone else. And it wasn't until I moved to LA that I actually started having healthy relationships with other queer people. You kind of feel like you're pitted against each other for various reasons, or you don't really understand, the cultural aspects of being queer. And I feel like Zario in the show was a way for me to kind of exercise some of the damage that I felt was inflicted on me because of, I wouldn't say because of other queer people. It's honestly the lifestyle of having to live closeted that really harmed me. And I think a lot of other people that I knew before we could all be out and proud and happy.
Well, and that becomes a very key point, because if he's going to have a relationship, he's having a relationship with another gay person. And where has that essentially wound and damage affected the ability for him to connect and have that relationship?
Absolutely. I would find myself getting upset over little things like, maybe I shouldn't say they're little things, but things that no longer bother me now. Like I wouldn't let someone call me girl because I thought that they were diminishing my existence. Not because I thought that women were less than, but because I understand that society treats women like they're less than. So me being queer, it's like, oh, so you're also less than. So I would not allow anyone to call me that. And, that's one of those things that happens when you're not a part of a gay community. You don't understand like how that can be empowering or how that can show love and affection. For me, it was an insult. Don't call me girl. I'm not your girl. And I would have arguments with people. And I feel like for Zario, there was a lot of that too, because I don't think he had a lot of healthy relationships with the gay men in his past. Yeah, some of his situations were, of course, fictionalized, but in a different way than people expect. People always think, oh, you probably hyped that up. Like, no, I actually toned it down. The reality of it was a lot more ridiculous.
Well, I think there's many other points where I think for many of us, depending on our experiences, we can see ourselves in some of those things, even though, like you said, you toned them down and some have gotten hyped up.
Yeah.
There are various moments where we can see ourselves in that.
I think that's also important because I love it when I can watch something and see myself reflected back, especially if it's something about like the existence of mind that's been historically marginalized. If it's something about, just something just really rich in culture. Like the way that so many Black parents don't apologize. Instead, they say, "Come on in here and get this food." And that's an apology, but that's like a Black culture thing, and then there's also things, like in gay culture and queer culture that when I see it on screen, it's like, oh no, like, look, that's me. Like, I love that is being shown. And I was grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that in my show.
Which I think you also touch on a very interesting part and question, especially I like to ask is, what was that nature with your family and the aspect of you being creative? Because there's that, again, cultural stigma about, oh yeah, you're never going to have money or any of these other things, or you need to quash that. And like you said, all the things that we have to do to just sort of live in this world and so forth. So what was that kind of relationship like? Especially since you said you at age 12, you got all these screenwriting books. Is like, most most Black parents probably wouldn't be doing that. Right. What's that all?
They knew that I was creative, and it was fun stories to tell on the phone. I think they were kind of taken aback when the whole the Batman thing happened and it went as far as it did. But then, due to the heartbreak of that, my young mind couldn't quite compute that things don't always happen. You're not always going to have the happy ending on the first try. So I actually took a step back from writing for a while. And my only creative avenue, like through my high school years, was music and theater, which my parents were pretty supportive of because I'm a really good singer. My dad really didn't like the theater aspect of it, which is, he's a Black father. He doesn't watch musicals, that just wasn't his thing. But I was never, by the time I was reaching graduation, I wasn't outwardly serious about pursuing anything creative as a career. So we didn't really have to have any kind of talks or, they weren't worried about me, which is funny because they should have been, because trying to suppress all of that actually just made things worse for me in the long run. And now that I am a creative, I don't really talk to my parents anymore because once I came out, we got very estranged. I came out when I was in my like early to mid 20s, and so I don't speak with them at all anymore. So now that I'm successfully creative, I don't know how they feel about it, but some part of me hopes that they're proud. Some part of me doesn't care. It's 50-50 depending on the day.
And what they have been open to actually growing and changing, and that's something that also, I think, comes through in Pretty Dudes in the standpoint of the idea of found family. Yes. I feel like if you have a wonderful found family around you, then it matters less what your real family thinks about you. Thankfully, I have, some great sisters in my life. But if it wasn't for my male friends who are basically stood in the gap for me, by me not having a great relationship with my parents, I don't think I would still be here. My best friend Tanner, he's the one that taught me how to drive. I have my friend Dylan, who if someone's bothering me, he's going to hop on a plane and come out here and try to fight them. So I have the characters in Pretty Dudes, of course, are based on they're amalgamations of the friends that I have in my life, and they are some amazing people who make sure that I know that I'm loved and appreciated, and they're the reason why I'm still here. Very lovely. And as a therapist, watching that is amusing in all those areas, but also it's like I'm watching particular one character, and it's like, okay, I can't help it, but I'm starting to psychoanalyze. Okay, maybe not psychoanalyze, but it's like, okay, I'm already starting to get this root of where, if we were sitting in therapy, where we need to work.
Yes. You know, what's funny is I think writing that season, I mean, we did 19 episodes and 2 short films for the first season. And I think it was kind of cathartic for me in lieu of therapy. And that then the production of the show actually sent me to therapy. So I was just kind of like, oh, this is what's been going on. This is why I was writing these kind of characters in this kind of way. There's definitely there's a lot of me in many of the characters, actually. I think I'm probably more similar to the character of Eagle than I am to Zario, but Zario has my problems. And then Ellington is based on one of my brothers, so there's a lot of that going on, but I realized, oh yeah, I have some things I need to deal with.
And Eagle was an amusing character to watch, and especially that one being from a woman's standpoint.
Yes, that also probably tells you a lot about me, that I buried my personality in one of the female characters. But yeah, I think I have this reputation of I'm very positive, I'm very optimistic, but I'm also the guy that shows up and we're going to start the party. That's that's me, and that's definitely Eagle. She shows up, she always has like a bottle in her hand, like let's go, let's have some fun. And that can be beneficial in a group environment, but there are moments where it's kind of like, okay, what are you trying to avoid by burying everything in events and in particulars like that? So
and the alcohol and such,
and the alcohol, exactly, because they might just be having a normal day, and there she is with the bottle in her hand. Everyone just has to, and some of that I think does come from my military background, which is why I gave Eagle a military husband. Because I mean, that's a lot of the military lifestyle is drinking. I didn't drink until I was right before my 21st birthday. I didn't wait all the way, but it just wasn't something that interested me. But I joined the military when I was 19, and that was like the main push of everyone all the time. Is like, Chance, are you drinking? Why aren't you drinking? I'm like, I don't need to drink. Like I'll just be everybody's DD. Like it's fine. And then you just get, it's just the culture. I don't really promote or support the military culture, even though I'm a veteran, just because I know what he did to me and what he did to a lot of other people. For me, I served during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So it was very traumatic for me and what I had to deal with. But I see a lot of other friends, some who are no longer with us now, who struggled with a lot of things that were exacerbated by just that military culture.
Right. Which kind of also shows up in Eagle's story as well. Yeah, and I know I was watching that scene where Eagle and Jay are sort of in their fitness challenge and so forth. I'm sort of watching this, and it's like, you do realize she was in the military. You think your baiting is really going to reach her after being in this place with how many different dudes who are straight dudes who are caught up on their bro.
Right. And that tells you a lot about Jay's personality too, because he still thought he was gonna win, that he was gonna beat her. He had that ego about himself, which I find charming, but I know it's toxic in its own way.
Yeah, that was the character I was really thinking. Is like, okay, I can see where we need to start working on some things and ask some other questions about some stuff.
Absolutely. Jay's one of those characters that came out like fully formed when I was writing the script. I knew who Jay was. I knew who Eagle was. And I knew who Zario was. Everyone else kind of evolved after casting, which is pretty interesting. Like Yoshi Sudarso, who plays Sunji, he brought that wonderful like Rose Nyland, Sinclair James, like that Did See energy. I think what he told me was just like, you need to have a Joey, and I don't watch Friends, but I got the reference. I was like, okay, I get it. I need to have a goofy one. Let's do it. I love it.
Which and I'll freely admit, I wasn't particularly watching him on Power Rangers when he did his turn, so I don't know if he was playing that type of character there either.
I think he was playing a caveman on Power Rangers. It's really funny. He filmed Power Rangers before he did Pretty Dudes, and I don't think it started airing until after we had finished. So it was pretty surreal to me because now when I go visit my friends and they introduce me to the kids, it's always, oh, this is Chance. You know, he's friends with that Power Ranger, and you know they'll say the character's name. I'm like, but also I'm your friend. Isn't that more important? They're like, that's the kids.
There's so much. And that to get to another aspect, looking at the show, your show is so very much POC centered.
Yes.
With especially the joke of Alexander's character being the only white guy in the group.
Yeah. And that almost didn't happen. I definitely wanted a multicultural cast because again, it fit my background. I grew up in a port city in Georgia, so a lot of my friends, you know, we were just from every kind of background. But when I was casting, I had certain ideas of what I wanted, you know, certain characters, backgrounds to be, but I was still open to pretty much everything and anything. And with Alexander, the actor that we cast, Kyle, he came in and he was just the best guy for the job. And it's funny because originally Alexander's character was going to narrate the entire series. But once we cast, you know, a white actor in that role, I didn't want, hi, my name is Alexander and these are my friends of color. You know, I just thought like that would just have the wrong tone. I didn't want it to be from the white gaze. So that's when we decided to split up the narration between all the characters.
Which was a nice one too.
Thank you. Yes, those happy accidents, right? It wouldn't have happened that way originally if we had gone the route that I was planning on going. But I like the way it turned out. But yeah, for me, it was really important that we have a multicultural cast. And at the time, I was a member of an arts collective called We Own the Eighth that was started by actors Dante Bosco, poet Abosia, and musician AJ Rafael. And they basically it was an Asian American arts collective, AAPI arts collective. And I was just there to support. But because of my reputation in the arts collective, so many Asian actors came out and read for the show to the point that I remember a producer who was talking to me about a different project was looking at the trailer for Pretty Dudes and he said, "So is this an Asian show?" I said, "No, it's just a show with a lot of Asians in it." And I think that should challenge the norm because so often our default setting is white and I don't have that default setting. I reject that default setting.
And very much so. And I think that's, again, because now I may end up airing these in different orders, but I was also just talking to Robert about Demon Hunters and what was going on in that show. And there's also that similarities that both of you have, in some ways, a similar diversity of the cast and the focus of that. And just, again, how that brings a very different tone to the storyline, which is possibly also why I was like, oh, yeah, I need to see how this actually ends, staying up later than I wanted to. And segueing also is that aspect of the fact that you had Donnie Brasco in here. For some of us that are other geeks, he was playing, I think, Rufio in Hook, as well as did the voice of Zuko in Avatar: The Last Airbender, too.
Yes.
And I know there's a reference in there where someone's wearing one of his shirts from Hook, but I admit that when I was watching the end credits, it's like, wait a minute, I didn't recognize him with facial hair.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I think we're talking about on screen. So that was Dion. That was Dante's brother.
Ah, gotcha.
Yes. So you're excused for not recognizing him.
Okay, yeah. That makes way more sense. But I can see the
resemblance. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I buried a lot of Easter eggs about Dante and Rufio specifically because Dante is one of the main reasons I moved to LA. He was working on a movie project when I lived in Alaska that I actually was producing. And it led me to uproot myself and come here. So yeah, shout out to him.
Beautiful. And I think also, again, the actors you picked to play the various characters that were of API were also very nice on the eyes too.
Right? Yeah, we have such a gorgeous cast. It's funny because I didn't have any kind of particulars when we were casting. I mean, of course, the show's called Pretty Dudes, but my frame of reference was that everybody's pretty to somebody. But the people that we had coming in the audition room, like, well, these people I think are pretty to everybody. We just had a beautiful cast, and they have beautiful spirits as well. So it was so great to work with them. And what I loved, if we're talking about the multiculturalism of the cast, is that we would rework lines, we would rework scenes, just to make sure there was some authenticity to them. I was very receptive to any ideas that they had, and I love that they came with their ideas. And I think that also makes it more realistic when you're watching it, because these are how these people from these very different backgrounds would interact together. And that makes it even easier to believe that they would actually be friends. Or frenemies in the case of some of the characters.
Right. Yeah, and I've now actually lost the train of thought of the question I was going to ask you, which was still related to the guys that were picked in this. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Oh, now I remember what it was, because it goes to the presentation that you have in there about ASL. That was beautifully done, and such a consistent theme across several episodes too.
Thank you. Dickie Hartz is this amazing deaf actor, a queer deaf actor who actually met at our day jobs. We worked together in Santa Monica when I was first developing Pretty Dudes. And once I found out he was an actor, I always bookmark those kind of things. And the actor who played Zario, Brian Michael Nunez, he had a list of languages on the back of his, and I was just looking, I'm like, wait, okay, I see ASL, I saw, the Spanish, there was English, or a couple other languages I don't remember now. And then I thought about Dickie. I said, let's make this happen. And Dickie actually was supposed to be in more episodes, but he's very in demand. He's on Netflix all the time. So he was supposed to be in the finale episode. We had to, unfortunately, write his character out. But yeah, I feel like if you're truly about representation and that's how I am, you will reach out of your comfort zone. And it was something that, like, working with Dickie, originally I thought, oh, this is going to be really simple. But then I didn't realize, we need to have translators on set. And, we have to make sure, again, the authenticity of these scenes are correct. So Dickie and I would, meet and we'd workshop the scenes together. Then we'd rehearse with Brian and with Caesar, who also does, science and ASL during the show. And I was just like, I see now why these bigger companies just don't do it. Because they probably look at it as a hassle, and it's easier just to, to go the easier route. But I was just really passionate about it. And it's one of the things about the first season that I still absolutely adore is the representation for Dickie's character. And I wanted to expand on that more. I'm really looking forward to more of my projects involving people with disabilities, because they also deserve to be able to have themselves reflected back.
Well, I'm not giving any spoilers away here, folks, but personally, I think he should have ended up with Dickie.
Yeah.
I think that would have been, that was the better character for him, at least from my perspective of things.
Yep.
So it's nice to know that was probably the original intention before, again, as life gets in the way of changing the stories.
Exactly. When you're indie creator, you have to ebb and flow, and we did a lot of ebbing and flowing, especially as we neared the end of the season. It was getting more and more difficult to land the plane the way we wanted to land it.
Which I think probably is going to be what gives more to both the movies and the second season for what's going on there, which again brings very much back to that aspect of the wounds, the relationship elements that are at play here for Zario and the other characters as well. So, but I think that is a perfect place for us to take a break. So we're going to continue talking about more of this, and maybe we'll get back into our panel at Comic-Con in the second half. So stay tuned, folks. This is Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist, here with Chance Caldwell, actor, creator, and all-around amusing guy. So we'll be back shortly.
Our lives and the world around us can get messy and frustrating. Untangle and Grow Counseling's focus is to untangle that mess and make sense of it so you have a good foundation to build and grow from. Visit us on the web at untangleandgrowcounseling.com. Perry Clark offers individual psychotherapy, couples and family therapy, and adolescence therapy from a variety of coping materials and resources. Visit untangleandgrowcounseling.com for more information. You are listening to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. If you have a question or comment about our podcast, send an email to pclark@untyingknotspodcast.com. That's pclark@untyingknotspodcast.com. And now, back to the program.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our second half here on Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. And this is Perry Clark with licensed marriage and family therapist. And I have to correct an omission because I've been screwing up Chance's last name. It's Calloway. And again, Calloway, which is also kind of annoying because I'm also a critter and one of the characters presently played on Campaign 3, the last name is Calloway as well. So it's like, oh, fuck. The
easy way to remember it is if you know the singer Cab Calloway, it's just like that.
Yep. Yeah.
Or if you read Fathom Comics, Aspen's boyfriend's name is Chance Calloway, which is another cool similarity. Yeah.
But you were just saying, too, in our break, that it's usually the first name that gets screwed up.
Oh, absolutely. It's usually just Chase. I get called Chase by people who've known me for years. And it's just kind of like, yeah, all right.
And yet you're not a bank.
Right. I actually bank at Chase, which is hilarious. But yeah. I understand, I think people just have like different shorthands in their head of just where they go. So it doesn't bother me.
Well, I think that also gets into what we were talking about on the panel at Comic-Con. And our panel was dealing with LGBT and neurodiverse. So as many guests know, I'm dyslexic, and I basically consider that it falls under that different brain organization. Hence, again, why I screwed up the name. And this aspect of getting with Chase and Chance, and I don't want to start setting up that connection, but it's Chance. So what was it like for you to be on the panel?
Oh, that was super exciting for me. Similar to you, like that was definitely a bucket list thing for me. I figured one day I'd direct a Batman movie and then I'd get invited to Comic-Con and it would be fantastic. And even though I got invited and it was fantastic, I find it amazing that I was invited because of my, my little queer show that that put me on the map. That is super surreal to me. Especially, I don't think we've dropped any new episodes in about 4 years. So the fact pandemic. That, pandemic got in the way of us filming season 2. We actually were scheduled to start filming again right when the lockdown happened. I think like a week after lockdown was our first day back on set. But these things happen, and I was still able to, go to Comic-Con and enjoy myself, and also sharing space with people who had these, I guess, such rich inner dialogues that we, were able to like have an outer dialogue together about what real representation is, whether it's, whether it's LGBTQIA or whether it's neurodiversity. I think those things are so important, especially as we're moving into this period where like across the world, there's like this homogeny that's being set where you need to be cisgender, you need to be, heterosexual, you need to be white. And in order to be empowered, you need to be a man. And we need more examples of just what it's like to have wonderful, diverse forms of thinking and backgrounds, and people being able to interact together and have a healthy, if at times uncomfortable, communion together.
Well, and especially if we really look at the reality of it, is that that's actually more the minority that wants that as the norm.
Absolutely.
There's a lot more of the rest of us than them. Absolutely.
Which is, I think, the most frustrating part. I mean, even with something as recent as the Roe v. Wade, like the majority of Americans did not want that overturned. But it's one subset of people, let alone, I think, just six people who actually did it and affected all of us. And it's really ridiculous how that happens. And it's such a, my goal is to decentralize whiteness and to normalize queerness and all of its bold tapestry. Like we shouldn't be afraid of seeing, two men having sex on screen. Like that should be just as normal as anything else. I do think we get a lot of two women having sex on screen, but it would also be nice getting that from maybe a woman's point of view instead of some straight male who wanted to just direct two women having sex on screen. You can always tell the difference. But even just beyond things like sex, but I think it's important that we recognize that people who are queer or who are dyslexic or who are trans, who are intersex, who have depression, have anxiety, that these people can still function in society. That it's nothing debilitating in the sense of we're less human than anyone else. So I feel like creators like us, especially people who are on the panel, like Robert Rice and Tara, it's our job to use whatever platform we have to normalize all of us.
Which is very much a message about what it means to feel comfortable. I don't know if you had a chance to speak with some of the people after the panel is over, but I know Robert and I had a chance to talk with this one father who was there with his two kids and was so thankful for what we were presenting.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk to too many people after that panel, but I had a second panel that evening where I had a little more time to connect with people. And it is always very moving to me when people are thankful for the stories that creators tell. I've also gotten a lot of emails and DMs from people about my show, just out of the blue. Always when I'm not thinking about it, where someone would tell me that some episode inspired them to go reach out to a sibling that they know was queer and just tell them that they have a safe space. I have some of my actors have reached out to me because their friends have said, "Oh, I saw that you did that show and it showed me that you were an ally." And then they've had friends come out to them because of our show. And I just think that that's really beautiful. And that's the kind of world that I'm trying to create. Like that kind of thing makes me very happy. It makes it feel all worth it because I'll just sit up sometimes and, think, oh, why did I do that? I self-funded season 1, so it was a lot on my pocket. I actually got diagnosed with my mental illness after the show because it was very taxing on my brain. And I sometimes I would just stare at the wall and think, why did I do this? I could have just not even approached this. And then I'll get a lovely message like that. And I'll understand that's why I did this.
Gotcha. And speak as much as you'd like, but I know this gets into another very much question I have for creators is like, how did your either work help your mental health or has been driving your mental health or brought more of your mental health to the forefront? Because it sounds like it brought a lot more of your mental health to the forefront. So what's your talk there? Yes. We can just blend this into the myths.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think something that really kind of, I didn't understand what was going on after the show ended. I didn't understand I was going through a depressive episode. And I also hadn't realized that I'd been dealing with anxiety for a long time. I didn't have terms for it. You hear about those things on the news or, in the media, and you assume it looks a certain way. Depression is someone, in a movie, it's depicted very specifically. So I didn't understand what I was going through. I just felt like an absence of existence. And when I just knew that something was wrong, and I spoke with a help desk, someone who was who ended up connecting me to a therapist, and they used this great metaphor that I understood, which was that I throw myself into work, and that work is like a refrigerator. No, not the work is like a refrigerator. That work is like just all the noise, the traffic, the kids outside playing. Whereas my depression is like a refrigerator. It's there, it's running, it's not going anywhere. But then once I'm not working, it's like going into the kitchen in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden the refrigerator is the loudest thing that you've ever heard. And I completely understood that breakdown. I said, oh, yes, because it's hard for me to not work. I'm prolific because I overwhelm myself with projects. I'm always working on multiple things all times. And
that problem all too well.
yeah. And for me, I guess I didn't call it this at the time, but it was a way that I was transitioning myself from one place to another without having to risk all what felt like darkness. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, once I got diagnosed and I was able to sit down with a series of doctors for, over the course of the last several years and understand how I interact with, my anxiety and with my depression and what I can do to curb it and how I can face it. How can I feel safe with it? What do I do if I don't feel safe with it? That was so much more encouraging than just me throwing myself into work. I still throw myself into work, but now it's no longer trying to escape something I don't understand about myself. Now it's just because, I like working. But if I'm not working, it's no longer this, I'm at the brink. Now it's kind of like, okay, this is how I feel. What do I need to do to manage it?
How do you feel that shifted your creativity?
I think, to use another metaphor, when I was learning yoga, I would force myself into poses, and my yoga instructor was like, "That's not how you do it." You're not going to get a medal because you just strong armed your way into this pose. It's about feeling your body and moving into it. And I feel like creatively, a lot of times I was trying to strong arm my way into creating. Mm-hmm. I feel down. Let me write something. Let me create something. Let me make something. And instead now it's like, I feel down. Let me take care of myself first. And then when I feel like I'm in a good place, then I can go back to creating. Because all that was happening is I was calling it almost like a creative postpartum. Because once a project was finished, I would crash. Because I no longer had that to hold on to. Even though I had other projects, there would always just be this crash because whatever I just finished had been, top priority, like the center of my existence. And I would just have this crash and now it's more manageable. Before when I would crash, I didn't understand it. And I would just be in this really dark place. And now I crash and I know, okay, these are the tools I need to do. I need to make sure that I'm getting outside this many, minutes a day or this many hours a day. And I need to make sure that I'm surrounding myself with friends who understand, who can help me talk through some things, and then thankfully there's also therapy. So yeah.
Very good. And I think that's a huge part realization. I think it's, again, part of the normalization that we don't get put into material. Who knows? Maybe one of your next projects should involve maybe a talk with more mental health. Hell, maybe one of your characters should be a mental health provider.
Oh, that would be great. I have a friend who's a therapist. And whenever we're watching shows and there's, a mental health provider on the show, she's always telling me you wouldn't say it like that. Or it would be like this. So I know that my depiction would definitely be more authentic because she would not allow me to do anything less than authentic.
Very much. And for those just who are, again, have watched some of this latest stuff that's come out of Marvel, where they thankfully have put mental health providers in there. It's like, no, you would not do that. No, we can't do that. It's like, right. You're not giving us the greatest view when we're already struggling to have this being normalized to come talk to us.
Right. Exactly. And I feel like, Living Single, I think, had one really nice episode where Queen Latifah's character, Khadijah, went to therapy, which was great because with Jazzy Guy. Yes,
I remember that episode.
Yeah, because in the Black community, it's still very, stigmatized. It's like, you got Jesus, you don't need a doctor, which is so problematic on so many levels. And I was glad that it was, the topic was broached in Living Single, but then, they never went back to it. And I definitely think it's something that I've started calling out my character's mental health issues in my scripts because I got diagnosed after season 1 of Pretty Dude. So I said, that's what this is. Well, let me call it that. Zario clearly suffers with depression, but I didn't know that that's what it was. I just knew, he's reacting the way that I would react. This feels realistic. This is how I'm writing it. Now I know what it is. Alexander, he has social anxiety. That's something that I have, but I didn't know what it was. So I think again, it's important. No one else is going to tell us stories but us. And I realized that, okay, if these are things that I wish I had seen in media to make me maybe step away from entertainment and to actually go look into something. Well, cool. That's now my responsibility because now I'm making media. So let me try to be that branch for someone else that I didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. And looking forward to how you develop more of that in the future too.
Thank you. Yeah, so am I. We'll see. I've got a lot of stuff, I've got a lot of pots currently on the flames. I don't know which dish is going to be ready first, but
right.
I'm very excited to share, I guess, my growth as a person through the growth of my artistry.
Hmm. Yeah. And as I recall from the panel, it's not just Pretty Dudes as a series and web series and so forth and Amazon series. You also had books too.
Yes. Yeah. Because these characters live in my head like tenants I can't evict. When we couldn't film anymore. Right? When we couldn't film anymore due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they were just still bouncing around in my head. And there were things I had wanted to do in season 2. Like I had wanted to do a church episode and things like that in the back of my mind, I knew probably were unrealistic because that was going to be very expensive. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, let me just turn this into a book. And then I can incorporate some of the scenes I wasn't able to do, during the show due to many different things. Also, maybe let you get into the heads of the characters more. So I was really excited about that. So yeah, I wrote it fast. I think because it came out in July of 2020. So I think I wrote it in like 5 months. I mean, it was cheating because I had scripts. It wasn't like it came from nothing. But yeah, the first novel is out. I'm working on 2 follow-up novels because if you know how, no spoilers here, but the show ends in a very specific. The season 1 ends in a very specific way. So I want to take the readers on 2 different paths that they can follow as to what happened at the end. But yeah, I'm very excited about where it's going because. We're about to start rolling cameras again on season 2. And then I've got sequel books coming, and it's just going to be a world for people just to spend as much time in as they want to for however long. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because as I was watching that ending, it's like, this is not going to, just again, from the therapist, saying this is not going to end well.
Nope.
No, it's like in this case, it's also going to be someone getting hurt, but this time it's not a gay person that's getting hurt. It's or causing it. It's how does this now disrupt the entire sense of their relationship? Not to mention also, because I want to briefly, before we get out of here, talk about what happened with Ellington.
Oh man. Yes.
And not just so much what happened was going on with him and Callie, but Mandy.
Yes. Yeah. That was actually, so Ellington was the one character that I knew I wanted to cast very race specific because of that storyline. Because I had my own experiences with interracial relationships, and I was always very shocked when the other person, we'll just say maybe was ignorant or racist in a unintentionally malicious way, or maybe just an unintentional way. And so I wanted to depict that on screen, of course, using humor to kind of couch the darkness of it. And that probably got some of the most responses I got from straight and queer people alike, where I was getting so many messages of, oh my gosh, this happened to me. Oh, this was me in college. This was me, And it's unfortunate that a lot of us have the same experience, but that's why I wanted to tell that story. I was on a date with a guy once, and he started talking about how I didn't have the accent, and I asked him what accent, like thinking, oh, you mean like from Georgia, And he said, the Black people accent. I just kind of sat there for a moment, like wondering where the prank camera was. Like, did he just say I don't have the Black accent? I don't even know what that is because someone who's Black from Chicago in the suburbs talks someone different from like someone Black in the city. You know, like there's no one, people in the same house don't talk the same. So I was just kind of like, are we really having this conversation right now? It's funny to me now. It wasn't funny in the moment at all.
Oh, it never is when those moments come up. And even more so in the situations when Ellington is finally clicking on those things. And it's just like, yeah. And then there's a combination, which I think Alexander brought it up, is like, I really hope he was wearing a condom at that particular moment in time, because I'm not looking forward. And there's certain regards that I sort of see too from my work. It's like, yeah, you really wish you were probably wearing a condom now as you reflect on this. And
right. Because sometimes if you think about the ignorance of maybe your romantic or sexual partner, then you have to also think about what family are they coming from? You know, if you're planning on starting a life with this person, how many other ignorant or even maybe maliciously racist people are you inviting into your life for the rest of your life?
And into any child that you have.
Exactly.
And so it's just watching what was going on with his characters. It's like, oh, wow. Not to mention, it's like, were you thinking of the term Karen when you were writing Mandy? Or was that just a byproduct of the fact of the time it came out?
That's a byproduct. I think I did make one allusion to the I was told by Apple Care lady. But that was definitely that was before we had a word for it, you know. Because I think it was like we had Becky first, thanks to Beyonce, and then all of a sudden then it was Karen, and now, you know, that was a whole subset. But Mandy definitely is a type of like well-meaning white person that I think a lot of us have encountered who verge on fetishization of anything that is not white. You can even see it in her earlier conversations with Zario, where she's doing the whole like the TH for the for the S, you know, in words when she's speaking Spanish and talking about some guy who she thinks is documented. It's kind of like, this is not how to approach any of this, Mandy. But we all know those people. I have people, and you have to decide, okay, how close are we? Can I check you? Can I check you right now? Or do I need to like go cool off and then come back and maybe have a conversation? Or is it just not going to be worth my time? There are people like that where it's like, you're not going to learn anything if I try to have a conversation with you. And the actress who plays Mandy, Stacey Snider, she's amazing. She's nothing like her character, but she gets that character. And that's why she brought so much realism to that performance. And as soon as you yelled cut, it was just kind of this moment of, wow, I believed you were real for a second.
Well, especially that scene with where she was cutting up the apple and Ellington walks in. It's just like,
yeah.
Flashback to Misery. Flashback to oh, frack! I'm completely forgetting the movie with Michael Douglas and
and Glenn Close, Fatal Attraction.
Yes, that one. Yeah, just like
yeah. Oh, she's so good. I mean, when we filmed that scene, I mean, Xavier Avila, who played Ellington, he actually won some awards for his performance in the show. So those two on screen together was just always electrifying. And that scene with the apple, I love it so much. I jump still when I watch it, and I know those moments are coming. I'm like, whoa, woo, she's scary.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So we should be going ahead and wrapping up. Where can people find more of Pretty Dudes, more of your work that they want to continue to take in and think about?
Absolutely. Pretty Dudes is available. You can watch the first season on Amazon. And if you want to watch some additional episodes, the second season is by no means ready yet, but there are additional episodes available on my streaming service, Stupid Ambitious. Because we did film some things before the pandemic that I just kind of cobbled together. If you want more of me, the easiest way is just to go to chancecalloway.com. I'll be posting all of my projects there as they are completed. I'm separated between on the page, on the screen, and on record because I also do some singing. And and then I have a duet with AJ Rafael called I Know Him So Well. That's available on all streaming platforms, and the music video is out now. So go check it out. Yeah.
Very nice. All right. Well, Chance, thank you for being here and looking forward to following more of your stuff. And folks, this is Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. So go check out Pretty Dudes and laugh as much as we've been laughing too.
And thank you, Perry. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Not a problem. Glad I could provide it. So stay tuned for our next episode here on Voice America Network. Have a good one, folks.
Thank you for tuning in for Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. Be sure to join your host, Perry Clark, for another episode on the podcast coming soon on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.